Have you ever heard a story so wild it sounds like something out of a blockbuster movie? A story about faith, trumpets, and walls that come tumbling down? Today we are rediving into one of the most incredible tales from the ancient world, the Battle of Jericho. Picture this. After 40 long years wandering in the desert, the Israelites are finally on the doorstep of the Promised Land. They've crossed the Jordan River, and the first city standing in their way is Jericho. But this isn't just any city. Jericho is a fortress. It's surrounded by massive, imposing walls, maybe even a double wall system, making it seem completely unconquerable by any conventional military standards of the time. The people inside are confident, secure behind their defenses, looking down at the newcomers camped outside. The leader of the Israelites is Joshua, who took over after Moses. He's facing his first major test. How on earth is he going to lead his people to victory against such a stronghold? They don't have siege engines or battering rams. From a human perspective, the situation looks hopeless. And this is where the story takes a turn you'd never expect. God gives Joshua a battle plan. But it's unlike any military strategy you've ever heard of. There's no talk of scaling ladders or surprise attacks. Instead, the instructions are ... peculiar. Here's the plan. For 6 days, the Israelite army is to march around the city of Jericho once a day. They are to do this in a specific procession. First, the armed men, followed by 7 priests carrying trumpets made of ram's horns, known as shofars. Behind them comes the most sacred object the Israelites have, the Ark of the Covenant, representing the very presence of God. And finally, the rest of the armed forces follow as a rear guard. And there's one more crucial instruction: complete silence. As they march, no one is to shout or even speak a single word. The only sound is the steady tramp of feet on the dusty ground and the eerie, continuous blast of the 7 trumpets. Can you imagine what that must have been like? For the soldiers of Jericho, peering down from their high walls, it must have been baffling. A silent army circling their city day after day. So was it a psychological tactic? An intimidation ritual? They probably went from fear to confusion, and maybe even mockery. What kind of army just walks around a city and blows trumpets? It made no sense. And for the Israelites, it was an immense test of faith and discipline. They had to trust in this bizarre plan, marching in silence, knowing their enemies were watching, possibly laughing at them. They had to obey without question, day after day. Day 1, they circled the city and returned to camp. Day 2, the same. Day 3, 4, 5, and 6. The tension builds with each rotation. The silence hangs heavy in the air, broken only by the shofar's call. It's a slow, deliberate, and mysterious act of obedience. Then comes the 7th day, the day everything changes. The instructions for this day are different. They are to march around the city not once, but 7 times. 7 priests, 7 trumpets, 7 laps on the 7th day. The number 7 is deeply significant, often symbolizing divine completion and perfection in the Bible. So they begin. The procession starts early in the morning. Once around, twice, 3 times. The sun gets higher in the sky. The soldiers of Jericho watch, perhaps more nervously now. The sheer persistence of the Israelites is unsettling. 4 times around 5, 6. The Israelites must have been physically and emotionally exhausted, but they keep going. The priests keep blowing the trumpets. Finally, after the 7th lap around the city, Joshua gives the command. He tells the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the city." At that moment, the priests blow one final mighty blast on their trumpets. And then, the entire nation of Israel, all those thousands of people who had been silent for a week, let out one massive, unified shout. A roar of faith and victory that echoes across the valley. And then it happens. The moment of divine intervention, the climax of the story. The Bible says that at the sound of the trumpets and the great shout, the walls of Jericho fell down flat. Just imagine that. Not crumbling piece by piece, not being breached in one section. The walls collapsed completely and utterly, creating a ramp of rubble for the Israelites to charge straight into the city. The very thing that made Jericho seem invincible, its mighty walls, were brought down not by human power, but by a sound wave of faith. It was a miracle. The Israelites, who had just been walking in circles, suddenly had a clear path to victory. They swarmed into the city and, as commanded, captured Jericho, the first city in their conquest of the Promised Land. This story is so much more than just an ancient military account. It's a powerful lesson about faith, obedience, and the nature of strength. It teaches that sometimes the most unconventional paths are the ones that lead to the greatest victories. The Israelites' strength didn't come from their weapons or their numbers, but from their trust in a plan that seemed utterly illogical to the outside world. Think about the walls in our own lives, the seemingly impossible obstacles, the challenges that feel too big to overcome. The story of Jericho reminds us that what might look like an impenetrable fortress can be brought down in the most unexpected ways. It's about having the courage to follow a path of faith, even when it looks strange to others. It's about the power of unity, patience, and waiting for the right moment to act. The silent marches, the trumpet blasts, and the final shout were all acts of faith. Each step around the city was a declaration that they believed God would deliver on his promise. And in the end, he did, in a way that was more spectacular than anyone could have imagined. So, the next time you face a wall of your own, remember the trumpets of Jericho. Remember that obedience and faith can be the most powerful weapons in your arsenal. The battle might not be won with conventional tools, but with trust, patience, and a well-timed shout of faith. Thanks for joining me on this journey back in time to witness one of the most amazing events in history. If you enjoyed the story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dives into incredible historical and biblical accounts. Let me know in the comments what you think about the fall of Jericho. See you next time.